Hi guys, today is Thursday afternoon. I've taken a half day off from work. I've got a bit of pesky overtime I need to get rid of, and taking a half day off every once in a while seems to be a good way to deal with that. Luckily, I've got Athena here to keep me from just sitting around and twiddling my thumbs. So let's head up and get started. The new AC and DC distribution panels won't arrive until next week at the earliest, I think. But that's okay, because there's plenty of other stuff to keep me busy. Well, I don't know if you guys noticed it, but the weather outside, it's not really all that nice. It's kind of a mixture between rain, snow and hail. Very windy and also quite cold. It's a lot nicer here inside the boat. Anywho, I've got some fun stuff planned for the rest of the day because I'm gonna be sanding. Yep, sanding. It's all the rage amongst the cool kids. This is my new random orbital sander. I've had this for about 6 months. And I'm very pleased with this so far. It's performed great. This is my old random orbital sander, and it's also a great sander. It's about half the price of this. But there's one big difference between these two. I've flipped both of them over so that we can see the backing plates. These will wear over time, and by wear I mean the grippy stuff that's on here will become, well, less grippy, resulting in the sandpaper that's on there just falling off while you're sanding, and that gets old really fast. I've gone through 3 of these, and on 2 of them the first thing to fail was the backing pad, and because you can't replace it, I was forced to buy a new sander. A few months back I had a bit of an accident with my new random orbital sander, and as a result of that accident the backing pad on here is not really in the best shape, but for this sander you can get a spare backing pad. If you take a look at the specs for these 2 machines, and of course also the accompanying marketing wank, there are tons of differences between them. But in my eyes, the most important difference is the fact that for one of these 2 machines, well, you can get replacement backing pads, because one of these is only about 20 bucks. So once you've gone through a few of these, you'll have more than made up the difference in price. There we go, good as new. Just to sum up, both of these are great sanders. This one is pretty lightweight, which is nice, but if you're going to do a lot of sanding, maybe consider going with the GEX version instead of the PEX version, primarily because of the fact that this has a replaceable backing pad. It looks like I can't put it off much longer, so into the aft cabin we go. As you might be able to tell, not a lot has changed in here. I've still got the mock-up from the last weekend hanging there, but that's about to change. Cue the sanding time lapse. 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! Oops, it looks like the water is starting to rise quite a bit, and I don't want my car to get flooded, so I better haul ass. That's my car. This is not the tropics. That water is super cold. Plastic bags for the win. Now, let's see if this car will start. Good morning guys! Today is Saturday, so a few days have gone by, and as you can see, most of the water has gone away. I think my much beloved Skoda and I got out of here just in time. I don't know how much the water rose before settling out over here, but the big pallet that's right there used to be right here, so the water must have risen enough to lift that over there. And my car, which was parked right out there, would certainly have gotten flooded with salt water by then. The fact that I noticed the water rising was, to be honest, just pure luck. I took a break from sanding to take a sip of water, and while doing that I looked out the port lights and I noticed that the boat was surrounded by water. But hey, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being just a little lucky every once in a while. But let's head down below and continue where I left off. I only managed to sand a rather small area of the bulkhead in there before I had to get going, but it's big enough of an area that I can move on to the next step today, which is fortunate because that means I won't have to bore you guys with more sanding. The first thing I'm going to do today is to fill in these gaps up here. I think this was some old AC stuff, and this I think was for a propane alarm. But I want this bulkhead to be nice and flush before I put up the new locker. To make this a little easier on myself, I want to keep this patch here as small as I possibly can, and I thought I'd try something new. I figured it might be easier to use a piece of paper to get the shape of this and then cut a patch from that. But yeah, this is the first time I'm trying this, so let's see how this goes. This should give me the shape of the patch to cut, although I think there's some unevenness in the outer veneer here in this part, so I might just go something like that. Now it should just be a matter of transferring this shape onto a piece of plywood. I'm cutting just outside the line I traced. That looks just about right. Plywood thusly cut, that looks like it'll do the job. Okay, well, that looks like it fits. Please note, I wasn't going for high precision here. I've finished routing out a slot for the second patch too. So now I should be ready to mix up some epoxy. These pumps are great, they're very convenient, but they do seem to fail quite often. I seem to get about 6 months to a year out of them before they fail. And these two have just failed, or well, that's to say this one has failed. So today I'll just go by weight. To get the thickened epoxy into the holes I've just routed out, I'll use my usual trick of just piping it in there with a plastic bag. I've secured each of the patches with a few screws, and I'm also applying a bit of heat. Hopefully by the end of the day I'll be able to fare the surface, but we'll see. Now let's move on to something completely different. In the last video I showed you this package. Now let's go ahead and open it up. Oh, fiddlesticks. Well, this might not work out like I planned. This was supposed to be sound insulation for my engine compartment. The old stuff that's in there is pretty nasty, and my idea was to layer these two types so that this stuff would go on top of this. But apparently this becomes really brittle when it's cold. So yeah, I'll just try and heat it up a bit and see if we can unfold this without cracking it anymore. This nasty looking stuff is the old insulation. And this is what the new insulation would look like. I think we can all agree that this looks a lot better, and the surface on this would also help reflect the light in there, so it'd be easier to see what you're doing. The good news is I've got the first little bit of insulation in there, but getting just this little patch of insulation to fit so that I could also close this took an obscene amount of time. I spent almost 2 hours on that tiny bit of insulation in there. A big part of that time was spent fiddling around with this awful black stuff here. This is in 1,000 pieces, and it's kind of like trying to do a giant puzzle without a picture on it. So maybe now would be a good time to ask for some suggestions. If you know of a good quality, easy to work with sound insulation material, just go ahead and leave a comment down below. On a positive note, it looks like I can go ahead and fare the surface of the bulkhead in here, which is awesome because that means today won't have been a complete waste of time. I've already gone ahead and mixed up some epoxy, and to thicken this with, I'll use West Systems 410. But I think I'll split this into 2 batches just to give myself a little bit more working time. I'll store this somewhere cold. This is a fresh canister of 410, and it looks like the little spoon that's usually in there is buried somewhere deep inside it, but that's okay. This is just going to be by eye. Okay, that looks about right. Let's give this a go. That's as close as I'm gonna get tonight, but any excess is gonna be super easy to sand out later in the week once this is cured fully. There are a couple of things I want to mention before ending this video. I know this is going to be a little bit short and a little bit light, but I've got some non-boating related stuff I need to deal with tomorrow, which means I can't shoot any video tomorrow, so I'll just have to make do with whatever footage I've got from Thursday afternoon and today. And that sound insulation stuff didn't really go as I'd planned, so yeah, this video is going to be a little bit light. In my last video, I mentioned some cruising friends of mine, but I totally forgot to show you guys the awesome gift they gave me, this pressure cooker. I think once I've got the galley up and running, I'll take this for a spin and try my hand at a cooking video. Maybe even get into some canning stuff. That might be kind of cool, right? This box arrived from Amazon yesterday. In it was a book that I plan to compare to the book I showed you a couple of weeks ago, but we'll get back to that once I've had a chance to read both of the books. In it was also all the different sizes of heat shrink tube you can get for this awesome Dymo. And that means once I start rewiring the boat, I can label all of the wiring individually. Now, this is my little test label. I've had this submerged in oil, in salt water, and I've had it in the freezer for a couple of days too. And so far, these look very durable. I'll include a link in the description for both the Dymo and also the heat shrink tube, just in case you missed it in my previous video, because I am really excited about this. Well guys, like I said, I'm sorry about this video being a little bit light. I'll try and do better in the next one. Hopefully, I'll see you next weekend. See you!